For several decades before the Tokugawa Shogunate came into power, Japan was in a period of civil war called Sengoku in Japanese. During this time, there was still a shogun, the official head of the Japanese armies, and an emperor. However, neither of these two figures had very much influence over society. It was the daimyos, medieval warlords that typically had their own castles and controlled small towns, who had the most political power. Japan, during the Civil War epoch, lacked a centralized army. Instead, each daimyo headed his own private army of skilled warriors called samurai. Two exceptionally successful daimyos named Toyotomi Hideyoshi and Tokugawa Ieyasu were ultimately able to put an end to the period of military and political turmoil of the 1500s. Hideyoshi, after gaining significant power on the islands of Japan, decided to expand his influence to the mainland in the 1590s. Hideyoshi's invasion of Korea and Manchuria was relatively successful. However, his abrupt death in 1598 damaged Japanese morale, and his troops retreated to Japan soon thereafter. Following their return, Tokugawa Ieyasu took hold of Hideyoshi's army and led it to further victory in the Battle of Sekigahara in the year 1600. Tokugawa's success in this battle ended the civil war in Japan and led to the establishment of the Tokugawa Shogunate in 1603, the military government under which Japan was finally unified.
Before the establishment of the Tokugawa Shogunate, Japan was controlled by various warlords known as daimyos, or great warlords, each of whom were given regional autonomy and land. In 1603, Tokugawa Ieyasu established a shogunate, which was a decentralized system that dispersed its power among these daimyos. Although daimyos maintained some level of autonomy, the nation felt a greater sense of unity under the shogunate, as the daimyos had to report often to the capital, Edo. After recognizing the power of Spanish and Portuguese missionaries in other parts of the world, Ieyasu expelled Christians from Japan and declared Christianity illegal. Attempting to expunge any remnants of Christianity, Ieyasu ordered converts to revert back to Confucianism and demanded that all churches be destroyed. Economically, trade improved inside the country. However, the Seclusion Act of 1636 severely limited Japan's relations with Western powers, which in turn prohibited any beneficial commercial interaction and development with them. By banning all travel in and out of the country, the shogunate ensured that Western influence would not overpower Japanese culture. Relying entirely on their own nation for food and resources, Japan depended on a strong agricultural yield, namely rice, sesame oil, indigo, sugarcane, mulberry, tobacco, and cotton from all parts of the country. In order to maintain agricultural efficiency, the shogunate declared that movement between the four social classes was forbidden. Merchants, peasants, warriors, and artisans were required to hold to their social distinctions. This protected an agricultural system by fixing farmers and peasants to their laborious jobs. It guaranteed the Tokugawa Shogunate steady revenue. This period of economic success did not last, however, as the peasant class began to rebel against the shogunate in a period of famine, which seriously weakened agricultural productivity. From the mid-18th to the mid-19th century, opposition to the shogunate rule gained strength. In 1867, the Choshu and Satsuma clans overthrew Tokugawa Yoshinobu, and with him the entire shogunate, effectively restoring the Meiji dynasty.
To talk about modernization, we have Dr. Arthur William O'Leary. Based on your research, in what ways did the Tokugawa Shogunate undergo modernization between 1603 and 1800? How did they keep up technologically with other developing nations?
Well, the main mechanism of spreading ideas and technologies in the medieval world was through maritime trade. In the early years of the Tokugawa Shogunate, the Japanese established trade relations with the British and Dutch East India companies, mainly exporting spices. However, the Japanese did not allow this relationship to culminate to the point where it actually helped them modernize along with Western nations. In fact, in 1636, Japan implemented the Act of Seclusion, which called for a cessation of international trade. Furthermore, citizens of the Tokugawa Shogunate were prohibited from traveling abroad. Essentially, they eliminated all competition with other nations. And as my colleague and intellectual inferior, Niall Ferguson, would say, competition is key to the development of an empire.
So you're saying they didn't develop technologically at all?
Well, agriculture was a large part of the Tokugawa lifestyle, and due to their isolation, the Tokugawa were forced to focus on reforming and developing technologies within Japan, namely agriculture. According to my research, 1,635 hectares of land were used for cultivation at the start of the Tokugawa Shogunate, and by 1720, the hectares of land cultivated skyrocketed to nearly 3,000. In summary, the Tokugawa did have some developments in technology, but their modernization was severely limited by the Seclusion Act.
Thank you, Doctor.
The Tokugawa Shogunate brought peace and stability to Japan. However, their failure to modernize at the same rate as other countries led to the shogunate's economic downfall. Most importantly, the shogunate failed to address factors of their rule that severely favored elite classes over others, which led to strong opposition and consequently their collapse.